This is Ogrodowski of WeAreChange.org here in Hartford, Connecticut at the Red Pill Expo. And of course, at the Red Pill Expo, I am joined by the creator of it, G. Edward Griffin. This is your fourth annual event, right? Fourth?
This is number 4, yes.
Yeah. Great event. My first time being here. Really great time. Really great crowd. Really enjoying myself. But I really wanted to take this opportunity not just to talk about kind of the red pill, but to talk about Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, how a lot of younger people are becoming more open to the ideas of socialism, how more favorable it is right now, and how kind of Bernie Sanders and AOC culturally are pretty much moving because of the situation socially and economically into a very, very important position that I would love to have you break down, especially with the background of the famous KGB agent you interviewed. But let's first focus on AOC and Bernie. What do you think in our society is happening right now that's creating so many people, especially young people, to go towards them and to be more favorable towards their kind of ideologies?
Well, okay, I can see several dimensions to this question. I don't want to make it too academic and boring. I'll make it a little academic and a little boring, maybe. But I think there's more to it than meets the eye. On the surface, it is pretty clear that, my gosh, these kids coming out of school have no idea about economics or history. That they don't know that socialism has failed. They don't know it's resulted in mass murders and genocide. They don't know that the people risk their lives to get out of countries that have gone social. They don't know this. All they hear are the Marxist slogans, from each according to his need, to each according to his ability, and, I'm against racism and war and plunder. I think, the slogans are gay. So the kids are falling for it just like their grandfathers fell for it because they don't know their history. They don't know economics. They don't know much of anything. And this is not their fault. It's part of the deliberate planning of the school system to make sure that people don't know about these things because now they can be more easily fooled. So that's pretty much on the surface. I think anybody can see that has any longer view than just what happened in the news yesterday. But then I see something else. I see the fact that today we get our impressions of current events from a highly controlled media. Okay, what does that mean? That means that our impressions are, fake. That's the current way. They're theater. Almost everything we think we know about what is really going on out there is theater. I mean, we see all these riots and demonstrations and rock throwing and everything, and we look at it on our television sets and we think, oh my gosh, the world's gone crazy. Wait, here, it's in Philadelphia, it's New York, now it's in Detroit, it's all over, and it's in Paris, and so forth. And then, accidentally, we might see a program where the camera pulls back and we see, this was a staged event. There's a little crowd of people there, and there's a guy throwing cues, and it's theater. And, of course, that's not always the case, but we have to realize that we get the impression that the world is on fire with this sort of thing, and we're talking about, at maximum, probably 10,000 people. At maximum. And they're funded by certain groups and individuals. We all know who they are. I often want to ask these newspaper reporters and TV reporters, if I could ask them, if I could get them on the phone and say, hey, Charlie, would you please pull the camera back or go over to the next block and show the lineup of the buses over there? And then I'd like you to do some investigative journalism and ask around and see who's paying for those buses and what did these people eat for lunch and where did the lunch come from and how much money were they paid and do they really know what they're doing or are they just hired as actors, And we know what the answer is. Some of them are very sincere ideologues, but most of these guys have no idea what they're up to. They're given a script and they say, okay, Q, you're on. And so we look at that on television and we think, oh my gosh, the world has gone crazy. It must be me, when in fact it's theater. Now, having said that, we come back to, Ocasio and that group, and Bernie. And is everybody really going crazy for socialism? Really? Really? No, I don't think it's happening like it appears to be. Now, we do know that, or we think we know, these polls are another issue. They take polls and say, 44% or 47% of the young people now favor socialism. Really? Maybe. I don't know. Let's just take that for granted and say, okay, that's true. Well, that's we talked about why that would be, because they don't really know what socialism is. All they know is that they think it's free. It's free good stuff. It's going to help those who need it. And they don't know that they're paying for it. They're paying for it in their money, and they're paying for it in the loss of their freedom. They don't know that. If they knew that, they wouldn't be in favor of socialism. So now we come to this weird thing as these people in Congress, like Ocasio, and what is this? This is crazy. How is she so popular? She's the leader of the Democratic Party now. Is she? Really? And who allowed that? It's theater. She wouldn't be leading the Democratic Party unless somebody, the director throwing the cue, said, okay, let's put her up and make her look like she's heading the party. I think your viewers must know that there are always these people behind the scenes that are really like directors of what we are seeing. So why would they do that? Now here I come to my observation, because we know that there's this thing it's called Hegelian dialectics, okay? This may sound a little academic, but this is really interesting stuff. Hegel was, 200 years ago, a philosopher, talked about human nature and crowd responses and all that sort of thing. And he said the way to move society, to move it, not allow it to happen or observe it, but to move it, to change society, is to use what he called thesis, antithesis, and synthesis. So what is that all about? Well, what you want to do is, if you want to change a country, let's say towards socialism or radical, it's not anything is radical. And it's very conservative over here. They're very traditional and so forth. You bring up some people who are going to be so radical, so extreme, so wild, that it'll just shock everybody. And people will get focused on that, and they'll say, oh, no, that's terrible. And then while they're so worried and concerned about this extreme position, then somebody comes along with a moderate position, which is halfway in between, which is really what they wanted in the first place. But people are so shocked by this extreme position, they say, well, we can support the moderate position because that's a compromise. So the thesis was all the way to communism, well, and the antithesis is no movement at all. The synthesis of the two ideas is halfway to communism. And so the people say, I'll take that because that's the compromise. See, I don't want this extreme position. Once you understand that this is a well-established tactic, it's been used for decades, now you go back and look at this theater that we're looking at, and I'm very suspicious that we're seeing that tactic being used on us, so that we will now say, well, we don't want that, but we'll accept somebody that's more moderate, and that's really what they expect to get into office this year anyway. Next year they do it all over again, and we keep moving to the left, through that process of synthesis, antithesis, and I'll get it right here, thesis, antithesis, and then synthesis.
My dummy version of it is problem, reaction, solution. That's a simplified version of it. And they really did do it very brilliantly with Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, where she's very relatable. She's very personable. People are watching her live stream put together her IKEA couch as she's chewing down pretzels. And she's also a waitress who is in debt because of college. And it's the system that has really created a lot of these problems. Not an education system, an indoctrination system that makes you lose all of your responsibility and power to the system, and they create people like AOC to reinforce it, to call for more systems and governments that created the problem in the first place, because a lot of millennials are suffering. They have a lot of debt. There's also a big mental health problem going around with a lot of young people, and what better way to get a cookie cutter image of a victim and to portray it as some kind of solution, to portray more of that same problem, to create more problems. That to me was the analysis that was very well put together by you. A great observation, and we have to question everything we see, especially in the mainstream media, because they portray stuff like this is the reality, and it's us believing it that makes it a reality. That's an important aspect to understand here. And this is kind of why I wanted to segue to the last part of this. Does this bring true some of the information that you found out through that famous viral interview you did with the KGB agent who came out and said a lot of incredible, amazing things? I mean, it was like one of the first viral videos out there that was going out even before the internet was a thing, where people were like, wow, this was really mind-blowing, this was really eye-opening. How do you see that kind of interview in retrospect here?
Well, yes. First of all, we're talking about Yuri Bezmenov, the KGB defector, goes way back in the 70s and so forth. I had the good fortune of being able to interview him when he came to the U.S. And so he predicted all of this. He said, this is what's going on. And he said, I came to America, and he risked his life to come here because, they would have killed him. In fact, they were looking for him at the time. He was worried about, who's around because they were playing really rough. They still do. But anyway, so he risked his life to come to America, and he was so disappointed because instead of the FBI taking him in and sheltering him, they made it very clear to him that they did not like him telling the story. They didn't want problems with Russia. They would rather sacrifice humans, beings, and freedom so they could maintain good relations with Russia and so forth. So he was deeply disappointed because they wanted him out, and they did not even protect him. So he had to he fled back to Canada, and eventually he died, and so forth. But anyway, he was talking in this interview about the demoralization, he called it, of the society, of the culture, the gradual eating away of the traditions, and I talked about it earlier, the denial of that history to the young people. If you don't know your history, you cannot revere it. You cannot have traditions because you just don't know what they are. And then if you're in school and they're telling you that these traditions were stupid in the first place, or that they were evil for some reason, they can always present anything to be evil. And then so the kids come out, well, I'm kind of embarrassed to be an American, In fact, I hate America. We got to change it. Got to be more like Russia, more like the Soviet Union, And this is what happened. So Yuri Bezmenov was saying, you Americans are further down that path than you realize. He said, I know because I was part of the group that was planning it and making it happen, but nobody would listen to him. So that's why it went viral, and I'd like to see it continue doing so.
It's important. Any other kind of last comments and feedback? We said 10 minutes. I know you got a very busy day. We're on 11 minutes now. I think 12 minutes now. So any other... I know you got to go. I got to go too. Any last comments? Where can people find out more about you? Red Pill Expo, by the way, will be in the description so you could find out more. But I kind of want to leave you here with the last words.
Well, the last words, that's hard for me ever to come up with. I don't know. I just say that it's time to wake up and smell the coffee. We've been very complacent in our country for so long, and people have said, well, it can't happen here, or you people are extremists, or you see a conspiracy everywhere, and so forth. And, hey, wake up. Things are bad, and they're not going well at all. And if we don't start taking the red pill, if we don't see the truth, and get rid of these illusions about how nice it is and everything, we're going down the tubes, and it's not going to be pretty. I've dedicated my life, and I think you have too. We're not going to let that happen if we can help it. But the key is to tell the truth, whether people want to hear it, whether it sounds reasonable or not compared to the theater that they're getting on their TV set. It makes no difference. We can't worry about what people say about us. If they want to say, look at the tinfoil hat person, okay, let them say it. Meanwhile, dump the facts out, and the facts will speak for themselves.
Very well said. Mr. Griffin, thank you so much. It's an honor and pleasure. Stay tuned for more here on WeAreChange.org.